This emulsified body butter is so creamy and juicy. It contains mango butter, of course, alongside with this super antioxidant oil for this pop of color, and a blend of emulsifiers to give that perfect texture. Unlike typical body butters, emulsified body butters contain water, which makes the final product feel way more hydrating while still having this satisfying richness. Let's start with our first phase, which will be our oily phase containing mango butter, caprylic triglyceride to give the product this beautiful sensorial feel. We are also using 3 different types of emulsifiers to get this special buttery consistency. Now, you may think that 3 emulsifiers is a little bit excessive, but each have strengths and weaknesses that will complement each other. Montanov 68 is the main emulsifier as it can produce a nice thick cream. Its downsides are soapiness and tackiness. So that we don't have to use too much of it to make a thick formula, we will use Cetearyl alcohol as a co-emulsifier to bulk it up. The downside of this though is that it doesn't really help to decrease the soaping. This is where our third emulsifier, Glyceryl stearate, comes into play, which is an oil and water emulsifier with a low HLB that will be fantastic at reducing the soaping. Here you can see the difference in soaping with a cream I made using a high amount of Montanov 68. Even though I also used Glyceryl Monostearate in it, as the Montanov concentration was high at about 7%, it was still soaping quite a lot compared to the final cream. Make sure you get the water and oil emulsifier Glyceryl stearate with the low HLB, not the high one that's called Glyceryl stearate SE. Very similar, very confusing, but they're 2 different emulsifiers. Sometimes Glyceryl stearate is also called Glyceryl Monostearate. Place this oily phase on your double boiler and melt everything gently at about 75 degrees Celsius or 167 Fahrenheit. In the meantime, measure some water, and because we are also going to heat this one, take a measure of the full beaker and recheck the weight after heating to counter any water loss to evaporation. I would recommend to put the water on the heat once the oil phase has substantially melted, as the water will heat up much faster. While you wait, you can measure your gum and glycerin to create a slurry. We will add that just after emulsification. Okay, the oil has melted and the water is at the right temperature of 70 degrees. So now weigh your water phase again to account for water loss and pour the oil phase in the water phase. Now give it a good blend for a few minutes. Make sure to fully submerge the blender to avoid bubbles. Now take out the blender and proceed by adding the Siligel and glycerin mix while hand stirring. This is so that our cream remains stable no matter what. You could also use xanthan gum instead of Siligel, but I don't recommend it since Siligel has a far superior feel in my opinion. Now comes my favorite part where we add the rosehip oil. Make sure you get the right type of rosehip oil, which doesn't just contain the seed oil, but also the fruit oil. I've purchased rosehip seed oil in the past and it turned out totally different. It had this fishy smell and it was kind of boring. This oil contains the fruit as well, which gives it this amazing color and beautiful fruity scent. Now we add our vitamin E and preservative eco, which will ensure that our cream does not go rancid or get invaded by microorganisms the next day. I highly recommend adding some mango-inspired natural perfume oil, but this is totally optional. You could also use essential oils, and I also like the smell of the cream without any scents, since the preservative eco does have a little almondy scent to it. It is best to add preservative eco before you add your essential oils or perfume oil, because preservative eco has a tendency to mask the scents. Finally, take a measure of the pH. This should sit at around 4.5 to 5.5. When it has fully cooled and has become thicker after about 10 to 15 minutes, package it in a jar. You could wait for longer for it to firm up before packaging it if you want to use a piping tool. As you can see here, mine was still quite soft after 10 to 15 minutes. I guess now would be a good time to tell you about my new website, organicalchemist.net. Here you can find all the formulas with their respective formula tables. It is even possible to upscale or downscale formulas and convert them from grams to ounces.
This is of course entirely free. It's still not perfect and there are many things I want to improve, but I hope this is helpful for now.
I think this formula has the perfect balance between richness and softness, but every skin is different, so maybe you want to tweak this formula to make it richer or lighter. The easiest way to do that would be to increase or decrease the mango butter concentration and adjust the water concentration so that the formula equals 100. Just make sure that your oils and butters don't go over 40%, which could lead to stability issues. Now I'm curious, would you try this or would you rather stick to the true body butters? If you enjoy this kind of product, then maybe you will enjoy this buttery lotion I made with sucragel.